also another question that I have about that is, so sometimes you see adaptations and like how to do if that's relevant or not, because sometimes it's how they adapt to perform to, you know, and then you change that, and then you change the technique and dynamic of how they run or perform. So how do you differentiate that?
That is such a great question. It's a tough question, right? Knowing who's in front of you. When I'm educating, teaching people how to work with a runner, and I think this, I say a runner because that's kind of what we were talking about right now, but I think this is very relevant for anybody in their sport or their passion. Are they brand new to the sport, or have they been doing it for years? Because the way that you treat and educate that person, the way that you program for that person is totally different. Because what we know from a novice runner, someone who's just entered the sport, they are most prone to certain running related injuries in the first 2 years, versus if they can survive the first 2 years of adapting that sport, their running related injuries change completely after that time. And if they sustain an injury that lasts longer than 3 months, that program almost starts over again because their body has maladapted to that. Because the body can be catabolic in nature, where we start to break down if we don't apply loads. And the body is beautiful from the standpoint that if we have adopted a certain adaptation or a compensation for something, you have to be very strategic to know, do you start to mess around with that and change that? Or can you understand that person's body or past medical history so well of understanding they have to do this in order to do the sport? If you start to change this, it will have a ripple effect and have so much of effect on other things, and you've lost the whole concept. And I think that's important for people to know, because a lot of people, it's sexy to say that, yeah, we're doing running analysis, we're doing treadmill analysis, and we're doing this and this and this, and we're getting all this data. And that's when I go back to saying, yeah, that's really sexy to say that. But it really comes down to, do you really know how to interpret that? And do you really know how to utilize that data? Because you can know running terminology, but if you just start trying to pigeonhole and make everybody look the same, that is not the route. And no one runs the same. No one should look the same when they do a certain exercise. And then understanding the person's body, where they've come from, where they want to go, like what are their major goals from a performance standpoint, or what are their goals from just recreationally. That has to dictate where you go to start changing certain things.
Yeah, so I think that's huge. And you're just able to understand all of that, if you are able to take a good history and have a good subjective exam. So I think that's just complement each other. And that's why when you're rehearsing patients, you can really do that and have this outcome.
That's right. When you don't have the time to dig in deep individually, then you have to be careful about making such changes, because you really don't know what effect you're going to have on that. So
you don't have the big picture. You don't
have all the details. Different. That's the difference between working with an Olympic qualifier marathoner and what her goals are totally different than working with somebody who's just into the sport for two years ago, and they're just trying to run their first half marathon, right?
Yeah.
They both have the same goal. They want to perform in a healthy way, but the way that you address that one person and how they should be performing or exercising or programming is totally different than the cues, the running cues, or how you interpret information on somebody who's being paid to run.
Yeah. And this that you said is 65%, I'm just surprised with this number, because I wasn't imagining that would be that much the impact of all the training. So that's very important to have a close relationship with the coach or with who is planning their training, right? So
yes. Or just talking with the person and saying, like, do you actually have a plan? Right? Because a lot of people don't, and you don't say that. You don't say that in a judgmental way, and that's why you're trying to build a rapport with this person. So it's all about how you communicate and how you motivationally communicate and interview with somebody is so powerful. Just understanding what has led to this, and I need to be able to make a decision. Is this really just a reflection of poor programming? Because if it's just a reflection of poor programming, then if I don't fix the programming, everything else I give this person is probably null and void. And maybe I don't need to give them anything. Maybe I just need to teach them how to program better. And so a lot of times I've had sessions where I'd literally do nothing for the person except build a program for them. And once I understand that, they're like, this is fantastic. I feel so much better because now I actually have a plan and to follow. And I didn't walk away with a sheet of exercises. And that's just because I've understood the person and understand where they're at. So
it's so big. Like you can help the patients in so many different ways and perspectives other than just giving exercise. I think that's huge once you understand that and you are in a very niche market. I think that's that's amazing.